the square, and you could hear the cheers from the crowd when he got in. The security men seem to be having quite a bit of challenge, ushering him in there. You can see them fighting somewhat to ensure that he has a smooth passage into that particular arena. Quite a bit of a scenario there, usually quite tough among the security
this
agencies.
Kind of scenario, Mark, where we've seen a few times that this has happened. We see uniformed men and men who are also security agents who are not in uniform. So there you go,
President-elect and his wife.
Absolutely.
Senator Moment Tinubu arriving together.
And again, the SGF also playing his role there, welcoming all of them as the chief host. Yes.
He's the man who is midwifing the transition. His office actually midwives transition process in the country. And I was going to mention to you, as soon as the president-elect arrives, the next person to arrive is a vice president, Professor Yemi Osinbajo. And when we were talking about the man Bola Tinubu, we know that Professor Yemi Osinbajo served as the Attorney General on the chiefs, you call him. Also.
And all of them being warmly welcomed by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. Boss Mustafa. He's certainly the one in charge of all of the arrangements we've seen being put together. Everything in terms of the arrangement being witnessed here in Eagle Square has been coordinated by the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation.
Also, I cited earlier the South African President, Cyril Ramaphosa, who was also received by the SGF. And of course, in line with the arrangement and the order of events here, we have seen up to the arrival of the Vice President-elect, and what we have not seen is the arrival of the President-elect, which in that order, arrival of the Chief Justice, arrival of the Speaker, arrival of former heads of state. I've seen former President Goodluck Jonathan arrive on the grounds today. Arrival of visiting president and delegation. We're seeing members of the diplomatic corps and some leaders across the globe. They also have arrived. Arrival of the visiting president and delegations, of course. Arrival of the vice president-elect. We've seen Vice President-elect Kashim Shettima.
Yes.
But I'm not sure that the president-elect has arrived yet.
And you know, Sean, in these matters, protocol is extremely important.
Absolutely.
The order of arrival is deliberately done to show the importance of each person, and hierarchy in matter of things. So, so far so good. All of the arrivals which we've seen are in order. And we certainly
is the Senate President,
indeed,
Ahmed Lawan,
the third in command, and the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, is with him. So they're arriving in company of each other.
The chairman and the vice chairman of the National Assembly.
Indeed. So they're going to receive their salute.
Yeah. So that means very soon.
That's them standing on the podium.
Yes, indeed.
They're going to be saluted by the military.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is a significant event, and a lot of people might be asking question the presence and the parade or the showing of Nigerian military all over the world, and this is a significant showing to show the strength, to show the organization of both the institutions of government, from military to political institutions in the country. And so you can see the synergy and how these entities are interwoven. So you can see the two heads of the different arms of the National Assembly, the green and the red chambers, the Senate President and the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila.
So very soon we just might witness the arrival of the president and the president-elect, because I mean, haven't seen.
Well, indeed, the vice president will come in before the president,
yes.
And indeed, the president-elect is expected to have been seated before the president shows up. He is the last person who shows up, and then the event.
And as soon as he arrives, the
event
national
starts.
anthem, the event starts. The arrival of President Muhammadu Buhari signals that this event can commence. He is the chair of this event, until the moment when the president-elect gets to the podium, takes his oath of office. In fact, we understand by protocol that the sitting president then has to leave immediately, because the chair in which, just look at it significantly, Mark, where the chair in which President Buhari will be sitting will have the coat of arms on it, and as soon as Bola Tinubu, the president-elect, gets sworn in, that chair cannot be occupied again by President Buhari. It will be occupied by Bola Tinubu, and then President Buhari will have to leave the arena. That is how the protocol has been maintained over the years.
And that is, of course, what we expect to play out here today when that happens. So that will also be bringing you all of those. So when he does arrive, we will have the national anthem. Then the event kicks off with the opening prayers, the swearing of the vice president. The president-elect himself will also be sworn in by the Chief Justice of Nigeria. So all of those events will happen. You see the formal handing over of flags.
Chamberlain, that the vice president was a commissioner.
Looks like we're witnessing the arrival of the president-elect. Yes, indeed. The man of the moment is in the square, and you could hear the cheers from the crowd when he got in. The security men seem to be having quite a bit of challenge ushering him in there. You can see them fighting somewhat to ensure that he has a smooth passage into that particular arena. Quite a bit of a scenario there, usually quite tough among the security agencies.
This kind of scenario, Mark, where we've seen a few times that this has happened. We see uniformed men and men who are also security agents who are not in uniform. So there you go,
President-elect and his wife.
Absolutely.
Senator Moment Tinubu arriving together.
And again, the SGF also playing his role there, welcoming all of them as the chief host. Yes.
He's the man who is midwifing the transition. His office actually midwives transition process in the country. And I was going to mention to you, as soon as the president-elect arrives, the next person to arrive is the vice president, Professor Yemi Osinbajo. And when we were talking about the man Bola Tinubu, we know that Professor Yemi Osinbajo served as the Attorney General under his government at the time. And so it's interesting, the twist of fate. I mean, our life, things happen, the turns and twists of life, where you have a city vice president who was a former commissioner under the president-elect. And now you see things are just churning, and this is how life is, isn't it?
That's what happens to those kind of offices. So the offices just naturally, they just take shape when whoever occupies all of those. So yes, as you highlighted, when after the vice president arrives, the president will arrive himself, and there you'll then have all the other activities kick on after the president does arrive. So all of those formal handing over of flags by the outgoing president, lowering, hoisting of national and defense flags for the armed forces, inspection of parade by presidents and the commander-in-chief, the march past in slow and quick time will also happen.
In fact, Chamberlain, based on the order of events, we are 2 minutes ahead of time. The president-elect is slated to arrive at 9:50 a.m. He had arrived earlier than scheduled. So this event, with what we're looking at, might just start very much on cue, right on time.
Well, that's the hope, Shewon. The hope also is that the president-elect will maintain that particular culture even as he becomes president. President Buhari, for all the criticisms that people will have for him, one thing you could not fault him for was being late to events. He was a stickler for time, and I think that designation, African time or Nigerian time, took on a new designation. Indeed, the arrival of the president of
it said they shared a lot of lovely moments when the president took ill